The room was alive with conversation, glasses clinking, laughter spilling through the air like music, and flashes of light dancing across polished marble floors. It was one of those social events people dressed up for but rarely remembered. Maya stood near the back, fingers wrapped loosely around a glass of sparkling water, her attention half on the people around her and half on the slow swirl of the drink in her hand. She wasn't expecting anything from the evening, just another obligatory appearance. A night full of small talk and pretending to care about wine pairings and trending destinations. But then it happened. One glance, across the room, just beyond the glittering chandelier. He looked up, as if pulled by some invisible thread. His gaze met hers. Sudden, soft, electric. It wasn't dramatic. No one else noticed. No background music swelled. No clock stopped ticking. And yet, in the moment their eyes met, the world around them faded just enough to make room for something new. Something quiet and profound. Maya blinked, but didn't look away. Neither did he. He had eyes like winter skies, cool but full of feeling, as if hiding an entire season of stories. She tilted her head slightly, a natural reaction she didn't fully understand, but somehow meant I see you too. A beat passed, then another, and then the crowd moved. A waiter stepped between them, and just like that, the moment was over. But something had shifted. She didn't even know his name, didn't know where he was from, what he did, or why he looked at her like she was the first real thing he'd seen all night. But she knew somehow that she wouldn't forget his face. That glance had settled into her mind like a page marked in a favorite book. He too felt at the pull of something unspoken. He tried to return to his conversation, to laugh at whatever his friend was saying, but his eyes kept drifting back to where she had been, gone, but not forgotten. It was absurd really. They hadn't spoken, hadn't touched, but that look, that one lingering look held something people searched for in 1,000 dates and never found. Connection, recognition, possibility, and while neither of them knew it yet, that glance would stay with them. In quiet moments, it would return. In dreams, in songs, in crowded streets where they'd search for a familiar face. A single moment unexplained, unexpected had opened a door. They didn't know each other's names, but something had begun, not loudly, not with fireworks, but with a glance across a crowded room. And sometimes, that's all it takes. The next morning, Maya stood in line at her favorite cafe, a cozy place tucked between a florist and a music store, ordering her usual vanilla latte. The morning rush was just beginning, and the smell of roasted beans and fresh pastries lingered in the air like a warm memory. She was staring at her phone, half awake, when a familiar voice spoke from just behind her. 2 lattes, please, one with vanilla. Her eyes lifted slowly. It was him, the man from the party. Winter sky eyes, the one glance she hadn't been able to forget. Her breath caught slightly in her throat, and for a second, she wondered if he'd recognize her. But before she could say anything, he turned and their eyes met again. He blinked. A smile, hesitant but real, formed at the corners of his lips. It's you, he said, a touch of amusement in his voice, like the universe had just let him in on a joke he wasn't expecting. Maya's smile came before her words. I didn't expect to see you again. He glanced at the barista. Maybe it's fate, or good coffee. She laughed softly, the kind of laugh you don't plan. Then, just like that, her drink was ready, and she was slipping away with a quick, nice seeing you. Wait, he started, but she was already walking out into the morning sun. That would have been the end of it, if not for the crosswalk. 2 days later, he was standing on the opposite side, earbuds in, head tilted up as if listening to a song the rest of the world couldn't hear. She stopped short when she saw him, almost as if he could feel her presence. He looked up, their eyes met again. The light turned green. They both walked slow, deliberate steps that closed the space between them. She stopped in the middle, looked up at him. We really have to stop meeting like this, she teased, heart fluttering. He grinned, hands in his coat pockets. Or maybe we don't. They didn't exchange numbers, not yet, but something unspoken passed between them. Again, just beneath the surface, like a thread being gently woven. The next time, it was the bookstore. Maya had her hand on a copy of Pride and Prejudice when a familiar voice said, good taste. She turned, smiling before she saw him. You stalking me? She teased. Only when you make it this easy. They both laughed, and it kept happening. These gentle, unpredictable crossings of paths, at park benches, late-night diners, grocery store aisles. Too often to be coincidence. Too natural to feel forced. Their glances turned to greetings, their greetings to questions. And with each meeting, a new layer of curiosity peeled back. The way he looked at her like he was discovering a secret every time she smiled. The way she tilted her head when she laughed, eyes dancing like she wanted to know everything about him, but didn't want to ask too fast. It wasn't loud. It wasn't rushed, but something beautiful was quietly blooming, and neither of them was ready to let it go. It finally happened on a rainy afternoon. The bookstore, Caf, again the one that had unknowingly become theirs. Maya was flipping through a poetry anthology near the back window when she heard his voice behind her. "You always go for the poets," he said, his tone light, teasing. She turned, smiling. "And you always show up when I least expect you," he shrugged, sliding his hands into his pockets. "Maybe I'm just good at being where I need to be." This time, she didn't walk away. Instead, they sat across from each other at a small round table, coffee between them, city rain tapping gently against the glass. The silence that had once defined them finally gave way to something new. Words. It started simple names, occupations, favorite books. His name was Elias. He was a graphic designer with a love for obscure jazz records and old black and white films. She told him about her photography, how she captured stillness in people's lives, moments they didn't know were beautiful until they saw them frozen in time. "So you see the world in frames," he said, fascinated. "And you see it in shapes and color," she replied. Their laughter came easily. They laughed about bad dates, awkward teenage haircuts, and how neither of them really knew how to dance, but both wished they could. And in between those laughs came the quieter truths. "I don't like goodbyes," she confessed, stirring her coffee slowly. "I've had too many." "I don't like silence," he admitted. "It used to scare me, but not with you." Something in his tone made her look up. That's when she realized his voice had become familiar. Not because of how often she'd heard it, but because of how it made her feel safe, curious, known. The conversation didn't feel like getting to know someone new. It felt like remembering someone you'd somehow always known, and though neither said it aloud, they both knew this was no longer just a series of chance encounters. This was a beginning. Time blurred. The rain slowed. People came and went, but they remained. He told her how he used to write stories as a kid, silly little tales about pirates and forgotten planets. She told him how she once took a photo of an old man crying at a train station, and how that image changed her life. In those hours, they built something invisible, a fragile bridge made of shared pieces, gently offered and carefully held. When it was time to leave, neither wanted to. "So, same time next week?" he asked, unsure. She hesitated only for a second before nodding. "Or sooner." As they parted, the space between them felt lighter, not empty, but full of words they hadn't yet said, because sometimes, the most beautiful conversations aren't the loudest ones. They're the ones in between, quiet, hesitant, honest, and something deeper had begun to grow in that space. It started with a message at 11:42 p.m. "Elias, can't sleep. Want to go for a walk?" Maya stared at the screen, already in her pajamas, the city humming gently beyond her window. She didn't hesitate. "Maya, meet me by the fountain in 20. The city was different at night, softer, more honest. Without the rush of day, it breathed slower. Lights flickered in windows like warm secrets, and the streets stretched out like poems waiting to be read. Elias was already there when she arrived, sitting on the fountain's edge, hands tucked into the sleeves of his hoodie. When he saw her, he stood with a smile that felt like home. They walked in silence for a while, side by side, the gravel crunching under their feet. No destination, just movement. He offered her one of his earbuds. "This one reminds me of you." She accepted it without a word. The music was slow, thoughtful, a gentle piano layered with soft vocals. She listened, not just to the notes, but to the intention behind them. It was something shared, something felt. "You listen differently," he said after a while. "So do you." That night, they wandered through quiet streets, beneath flickering street lights and ivy-covered fences. They didn't talk much, but they didn't need to. There was a rhythm between them now, a shared silence that spoke louder than any conversation. He reached for her hand, not dramatically, but naturally, like it had always belonged there. Her fingers laced through his, and they both felt it, the weightlessness that only comes when two people stop holding back. As the sky turned the soft color of midnight, they sat on a bench overlooking the lake. The moon was low, casting silver across the water, and the reflection shimmered like something unreal. I like this, Maya whispered, not rushing, just being. He nodded. This is my favorite version of the world, when everything is quiet and real. They talked about everything and nothing. Their favorite constellations, what scares them most, how silence used to feel like loneliness until they found someone to share it with. He told her he used to wish for grand moments, fireworks, dramatic confessions, kisses in the rain. But now he understood something more. I think love lives in the small things, he said, voice low. Like this, sitting beside you and not needing anything more. Her eyes met his not with surprise, but with understanding. She felt it too. Nights became theirs. Walks turned into rituals. A shared playlist. A thermos of tea. A jacket offered when it got too cold. Nothing grand. Nothing loud. Just infinite moments disguised as ordinary ones, and in every one of them, their bond grew. Not because they said the right words, but because they felt the same silence, beat for beat. It wasn't about falling in love. It was about realizing they already had. They still met at the same cafe, still sat by the window where the light poured in just right, still ordered the same drinks, vanilla latte for her, black coffee for him. But something had shifted. The warmth between them wasn't gone. It had simply cooled. Conversations that once flowed like rivers now arrived in scattered drops. The laughter was still there, but quieter, shorter, as if both were searching for the rhythm they once shared, but couldn't find the beat. Maya noticed it first in the way Elias avoided her eyes when he spoke, in the pauses that hung a little too long, in the way he started checking his phone more often, not out of boredom, but as if retreating into a safer world where feelings didn't have to be explained. She wanted to ask what was wrong, to say, talk to me, but she didn't, because she too had felt the tremor inside her, that rising fear of closeness, of being truly seen, of losing someone just as deeply as you began to need them. So she said nothing. One night, they sat by the lake, their lake, but the silence wasn't comforting this time. It wasn't filled with music or shared thoughts. It was a silence, heavy, with everything left unsaid. Elias broke it. I might take a break. Go visit my brother for a few weeks, he said, not looking at her. Oh, Maya replied, her voice thin. That sounds good. But it didn't sound good. It sounded like an ending in disguise. He waited for her to say something more, to ask him not to go, but she didn't, because her own walls were rising now, built from every past hurt, every goodbye that had come too suddenly. The silence between them deepened, not the comfortable kind they once shared, the kind that said, I'm here with you. This was a colder silence, one born of fear, of doubt, of wounds they'd both carried into something fragile and new. The next morning, she found herself back at the cafe alone, her hands wrapped around her cup, but it wasn't warm enough. The chair across from her felt painfully empty. She looked at her phone, hovered over his name, and then locked the screen. He too sat in his apartment staring at the playlist they built together, letting it play but not really listening. Every lyric stung now, every song a memory they hadn't yet made. What had happened? Nothing dramatic, no fight, no betrayal, just the slow unraveling of two hearts afraid to be broken. They were both still holding on, but too quietly for the other to hear. And sometimes, love doesn't end in shouting or storms. Sometimes, it ends with a silence too wide to cross. The rain returned like a memory, steady, soft, unrelenting. Maya stood beneath the awning of the bookstore cafe, hands stuffed into her coat pockets, heart heavier than the sky above. It had been 3 weeks since Elias left. 3 weeks of unfinished texts, unsent voice notes, and silences too loud to ignore. She told herself he needed space. She told herself she was fine. But the truth was, every step she took, every coffee she drank, every photograph she framed, his absence echoed. Through it all, she glanced at the door, not expecting anything, and yet, there he was, drenched in rain, hoodie clinging to him, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes fixed only on her as if the world behind him didn't exist. They stared at each other, frozen in the hum of traffic and falling water. Then, without a word, he stepped toward her. He was shaking, maybe from the cold, maybe from nerves. Maya couldn't tell. His eyes were tired, but they held something raw, something real. He stopped just inches from her. I'm sorry, he said, voice rough, quiet. She didn't reply. Not yet. The air between them pulsed with everything they hadn't said. I left because I got scared, Elias continued, his voice catching. Of how much I felt. Of how easily you slipped into my life like you'd always belonged there. And I thought, if I pulled away, it would be easier. The rain pattered harder now, sliding off the awning, dripping down between them like a curtain about to rise. But it wasn't easier, he whispered. It was worse. Every morning, every night it was you. You in the music I played, in the photos I scrolled past, in every damn thing I saw. Maya swallowed, heart thudding. He took a trembling breath. I never stopped thinking about you. Those 7 words broke something open, not painfully, but beautifully. Her chest ached, not with sadness, but release. I thought I was the only one, she finally said, her voice shaking like his hands. He stepped closer. You weren't. She reached out slowly, touching the edge of his soaked sleeve. Why now? Because, he said, eyes locked to hers. I couldn't live another day wondering what we could have been if I'd just said how I felt. The silence between them now felt different. No longer a void, but a space waiting to be filled with healing. She smiled through tears. Then say it. Elias leaned in gently, forehead resting against hers. The rain framed them like a quiet witness. I love you, Maya. She let the words settle into her skin, her bones, her breath, and then, with a trembling exhale, she whispered back, I love you too. No fanfare, no crowd, just 2 hearts, finally speaking their truth, and in that soft, rainy silence, everything changed. The same room, the same golden lights, the same quiet murmur of conversations, but everything felt different now, softer, warmer, like the room itself knew that something had come full circle. Maya stepped inside, heart steady. She wasn't looking for anyone. This time, she wasn't hiding in the background or waiting for something to happen. She was simply there, present, open, whole. But still, instinctively, her eyes scanned the space, and then, she saw him. Elias stood exactly where he had the first time, near the shelf labeled poetry and heartache, as if the universe had carefully placed him there to bring everything back to where it began. He turned just as she looked his way. Their eyes met, and in that glance, that familiar, unshakable moment, the world tilted again, not with surprise, but with recognition. This time, they both smiled. He didn't move right away. Neither did she. They just let the moment exist, like it deserved to stretch a little longer. Then, he walked toward her, not rushed, not uncertain, just, ready? Déjà vu? He said, stopping in front of her. She nodded, her smile soft. No, just fate finishing what it started. There were no walls left between them, no unsaid fears, no misread silences, just the clarity of 2 hearts that had wandered the long way back to each other. Elias reached for her hand, fingers intertwining naturally like they'd done it 1,000 times. I knew it the moment I saw you, he whispered. I didn't understand it then, but I felt it. She looked up at him the same way she did that first night and saw not a stranger, not even a love interest, but home. I felt it too, she whispered. They didn't need to say more, not tonight, because love, real love, doesn't always need grand speeches. Sometimes, it's in the way you stand beside someone and know you don't have to pretend. Sometimes, it's in the way you meet someone's eyes and feel time bend around you. That first look had been a spark. The silence between had been a slow flame. The heartbreak had been a test. And now this moment, this was the fire that would warm their future. Back where it all began, 2 people finally stood with nothing between them. No doubts, no questions, just the quiet, knowing that some connections are meant to last. Elias leaned in close, lips near her ear. This time, he said, I'm not letting you walk away. Maya smiled, eyes glistening. Good, because I was never going to. And as the music swelled around them, and people continued to move through the evening unaware of the story unfolding in their midst, 2 souls held each other in a look that didn't just say I love you. I'd said forever.